Hey guys, and welcome back to Hummingbird Acres. Today we are in the kitchen and we are going to be making some sourdough pizza crust. Now, it is a tradition in our house to have pizza. It used to be on Fridays, but now because the kids have pizza at school on Fridays, it has moved to Saturdays. So we have our Pizza Saturday tradition, and this is my go-to recipe for pizza crust. Now, I do have to say before I start, this does take a little bit of prep and a little bit of planning because you do want the dough to rise. If I forget to feed the sourdough starter, or it's just not where I want it to be, or maybe I don't have enough starter, I do have a backup recipe that just calls for straight yeast. It is my aunt's recipe, and we love that one too. But this sourdough pizza is normally our favorite. So this recipe actually is a discard recipe, and it's included in our discard cookbook. If you want a copy of that, I'll leave a link below for you. It is a cup of sourdough discard, and this makes 2 pizzas, by the way. Half cup of lukewarm water, and then it is 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and then it is a teaspoon of salt. And I also like to add in a teaspoon of yeast into this recipe, just because it does help it rise. And if it is a discard, it could use a little extra rise. I have also made this recipe with active starter, and I just don't put the yeast in it. And it does great. It does take a little bit longer to rise, but it will still work. Kind of what I'm getting at with this whole recipe is it's kind of fail-proof. You can't really mess this recipe up. So if you have a discard, I recommend using the yeast. If you have a pretty active starter, then you probably don't need the yeast, but you could add the yeast if you're in a time crunch. So there's how we go. So I'm going to mix all of the ingredients in a large mixing bowl. I use my stand mixer for this because it's just, why not? So I'm going to mix it and knead it together for about 7 minutes until the sides of the bowl are clean, the dough hook is clean, like it's all kind of come off and it's formed a ball. And then what I'm going to do is grease a bowl and then drop the dough in, kind of flip it around a couple times so it gets a little covered. And then I'm going to cover the bowl with plastic wrap and let it rise until it's doubled. My timeline for this normally is I like to mix the dough together around lunchtime. And then normally we try to eat around like 6:30. So once it has doubled, somewhere between 2 and 4 hours. This is going to depend on how warm or how cold your house is. In the summer, this process is a lot faster for us than it is in the winter. So you just got to play with it a little bit. After you while you're letting it rise at some point in the day, it's probably also a good idea to make your pizza sauce. We have our homemade pizza sauce that we absolutely love, and I'm going to share that recipe with you too. So our pizza sauce, now this normally makes 2 pizzas. We don't like a lot of sauce on our pizza, but we like a pretty good amount. So this recipe will make enough sauce for 2 pizzas. So for this, you need a 15-ounce can of tomato sauce, or just 15 ounces of tomato sauce, 2 teaspoons of oregano, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of basil, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of seasoned salt. You're going to mix this all together in a pot. You're going to put on the stove and let it heat over medium to high heat until it reaches a boil. And then what I normally do is just turn it off. And then when I'm ready to use the sauce on the pizzas, if it's not warm, then I'll just turn the stove back on and get it to warm back up. Something else that we have recently started doing for pizza night is grating all of our own cheese. So not at the point where we're making our own mozzarella yet, but I don't want to buy the shredded cheese because it's coated in the nasty chemicals so that the cheese won't stick together and yada, yada, yada. So we've been grating our own cheese. So at some point, I will also, throughout the day, when I have a minute, go ahead and grate the cheese so that part is done as well. So if I mix the dough at about 12, then at about 4 o'clock, I want to kind of punch the dough down, divide it into 2 balls, and then I'm going to put it in a warm spot so that they will rise. Now, if our house is really, really cold, I will put them on the heat mat and let them rise there. Or if it's warm in the house, I'll just leave them on the counter. Actually put them on parchment paper because it helps so they don't stick to things. So parchment paper, and then I will let them rise on the parchment paper for about another 2 hours. From there, I roll out our pizza dough. They normally make about 2 12-inch pizzas. And then once that, I have 2 12-inch pizzas. I put one in the oven. I bake it for the first bake. I'll do at 400. I'll bake it for 6 minutes. I will pull it out. I will put all of our toppings on, and then I will put it back in, and I'll bake it for another 10 to 11 minutes until the cheese is kind of bubbly and brown. And then I'll remove it and let it cool, and then we enjoy. So there you have it, our quick, simple, easy pizza recipe. If you guys have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and I would love to know what other sourdough recipes you guys want to see me make. We use sourdough almost daily in our house and in our kitchen. So what else do you guys want to see me make? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for hanging out with us at the farmhouse, and we will talk to you soon.